Well, good Monday morning. I'm Jeff Coleman.
And I'm Deborah Pinkerton. Welcome to Morning Light.
In just a moment, our new Morning Light panel will go behind the headlines.
But first, here's a preview of what's coming up a little bit later in the show. Discipleship, mentoring, and life skills training. How Pennsylvania Adult and Teen Challenge, a faith-based nonprofit, is giving hope to the addicted. Plus, a woman shares how the organization transformed her life and strengthened her relationship with Jesus.
It's going to be a powerful conversation, Deborah. Well, it is Monday, September 9th, and 'twas the day before the big presidential debate. Two weekend polls show both candidates are evenly split in Pennsylvania. Both CNN and CBS show Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump with equal levels of support. This after ABC News released a list of debate rules sounding more like do's and don'ts for the first day of school. But everyone wants to know, will the rules be enough to keep the debate from turning into a food fight?
Well, we certainly hope it's not a food fight. We hope we hear the policies from both candidates. That's really going to help voters. Yeah, absolutely. Well, during the debate between President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump, the moderator asked, what are you going to do to help Americans in the throes of addiction, struggling to get the treatment they really need? Although Trump lost a brother to alcoholism and one of Biden's sons battled addiction, both chose to talk about immigration reform instead. If the question comes up again, should the candidates focus on what really is driving up addiction?
I think their stories show that every family has in some way been impacted by addiction.
That is right.
Well, there are clear benefits to being outside in nature, and Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro and his administration thinks it could be key to accelerating healing for those suffering from addiction. But is this Recovery in Nature program just another way of really affirming what we've known all along? Turning down the noise and distractions of a 24/7 digital world is essential to finding some real peace. We'll take these questions to the new Morning Light panel. Pastor Mike Leonzo from Living Water Community Church, we're honored to have you this morning.
Thank you.
Rebecca James, Ducere Communications, Solutions, you've been here before, and we're thankful to have you back. And a new face, Doc Bauer of Freedom Biker Church. What an honor to have you here, my friend.
Thank you,
it's going to be a great conversation. I want to start out with going back to 1947 and a story that's almost never told, and that is two candidates who both became president traveled in the same train to Pittsburgh for a debate on a labor bill. Richard Nixon and John Kennedy. One was 37, the other was 35. They'd both served in the Pacific together, and after the debate, which was a pretty heated debate, they rode back on the same train. They drew straws. Nixon got the bottom bunk, Kennedy got the top bunk. They had a meal before where they talked about baseball. Now contrast that with this set of debaters tomorrow night. They've not met each other. They're from two different generations. And neither of them has been, let's say, very respectful about the other in the minutes leading up to this debate. People love hockey and they love boxing because they like to see blood. But tomorrow night, I hear some of the chatter we've had before going on the air today that a lot of people don't want that and would love some substance. Our kids are watching. Doc, I'll start with you. What's your sense of this debate?
I was a boxer, so I love boxing. and I would say, let's get the gloves out and let them go at it. But honestly, Jeff, they need to talk about how to fix this country. Mm-hmm. Right now, we're broken. We've got problems. And I'm really tired of politicians that just give us a lot of fluff, but they give us nothing to work with. And, you know, we're told we need to respect our politicians. In Romans 13:1, it says that we need to abide by our authority and listen to our authority and respect them. But it's hard to respect somebody that's not respecting us.
Yeah, I get that. So your sense, look, you've had to navigate a very challenging situation. You've got a church in a city. You've got probably an equal number of Democrats and Republicans in your congregation. So, but they look at these debates and this is a joke. These are adults. Why can't they just talk like real people or respectful people? What do you say to them?
Well, it's been a big challenge at Living Water with people from lots of different perspectives. And one of the things that I try to encourage our church family with is that you need to consider others better than yourself. And I mean, I think in some ways we're expecting our politicians to act in ways that perhaps they're not even capable or willing to do right now. But I would agree with Doc that people want to hear substance. They're tired of the fluff. You know, and then as divided as we are, and a lot of times, you know, someone's going to ultimately win this election,
right,
and they're going to win by a very small margin,
right,
and you can't govern with a 51% majority. I mean, that's just the reality is you have 49% of the people who are unhappy with you. And I think really what we need to see is politicians figuring out how do we work together to solve some of these things? How do we, you know, get 80% of what we want, not 100% of what we want?
That's very helpful. So Rebecca, let's take you over to the William Penn Hotel in Pittsburgh, and you're advising Kamala Harris, and then maybe another day you're at Bedminster and advising President Trump. And you're, as a communications expert, you're trying to help them say, look, if you actually want to be heard, not just cheered by your base, give them some advice on how to actually be listened to persuade people, not just to kind of say the right things to get a cheer.
Sure. I think there's a lot of common ground, actually, between Democrats and Republicans. There are problems in this country that they both want to solve. And so I would advise them, here are the problems, and how are you going to solve them? So what are the strategies and what are the policies that you're going to put forth that's going to help Americans on both sides?
That's helpful. The issue, there was a kind of a softball in the last presidential debate on addiction and recovery. And they said, what are you going to do about recovery? Both said, you know, time is money, and this is a tight election. We're going to talk about immigration, kind of the source issue. But there is a demand side to addiction. We have a lonely, isolated culture that is turning often to addiction to solve problems. How do you walk into this moment? Rebecca, will stay with you. And should they answer the question, actually talking about ways to get America on the road to recovery again?
Sure, and I think there are several causes for this, and they went to immigration because that's perhaps one of them, where we have fentanyl coming over our borders daily. And the other one is an economic problem. You know, you can't afford things. You know, people who are facing addiction can't get help, and they can't, you know, go out and get an apartment. And, you know, it's so expensive. We were talking about this beforehand. So there are some causes to those problems. You know, social media and kids being on medication more than ever in
Starting
school.
so early.
Yeah, and social media is isolating people. So there are some causes that can be addressed, but then it's a full strategy. So in business, we look at the whole strategy, not just the causes, but then what are you going to do about it? What programs can you put in to support, you know, recovery and job placement?
Doc, what is the driver on the spiritual side of this, kind of the malaise that people are experiencing that are turning to addiction?
Yeah, man, I'll tell you, they're so lonely. People are lonely. We were talking, Mike and I and Rebecca and about, you know, COVID and how it separated all of us. It pulled us all apart, and a lot of it hasn't come back. And a lot of the, you know, I'm a recovering alcoholic, so I've dealt with it in my own life.
Sure.
And the one thing that I tell everybody is you need to have, you have to have Christ in your life. If you don't have salvation, you can't do it on your own.
A program isn't going to do it.
Programs help.
Yeah.
I would never badmouth a program, because programs help. Programs give you guidance.
Right.
If you're a Christian, you need to get into a Christian program that can help you. Because I always think of John 8:36. So who the Son sets free shall be free indeed. And you need that freedom to get away from it. And we don't see a lot of that anymore. We see in the media, we see in music, we see in a lot of places where they actually glorify it. And the problem when it's glorified is you get the young person or even the older people who get into it. It isn't glorified. It's Satan. It's him getting into the cracks of our lives and and I'm telling you, you're miserable in that life.
Pastor?
Well, I can, you know, he talks about being miserable. I can remember I grew up with a grandmother and grandfather who were both alcoholics, who I loved very much. My grandfather was a POW in World War II. He was wounded in the Battle of the Bulge. And as a kid, I can remember going to their house they lived on Manor Street in the city, My granddad would come home from work, and he had a Seagram 7 bottle, plastic bottle with a pump on it, beside his chair, and he would spend the entire night filling a little shot glass up with Seagram 7, drinking Ballantine beer. My grandmother was an alcoholic. It was horrible for my mom. And that was before you had a lot of these programs and things like that. And so, experiencing that and then seeing in our own church family, I was telling Rebecca earlier, we have a fellow in our church family who just went to a recovery place the other day. And so there's this huge spiritual component that's going on with it. But also, and former President Trump, Vice President Kamala Harris, they're not going to solve the heart issue.
Right.
They can help to solve the inflow of drugs. They can allocate money for organizations like you guys are going to talk to Teen Challenge later on today, of helping fund those things. But the church is the thing that is able to help people's hearts. And at the end of the day, it's they're wounded hearts.
Yeah. 30 seconds. I want to ask you, just pivot quickly to this idea of Josh Shapiro recognizing in his administration that the outdoors are critical to reconnecting with our Creator. Your sense of what the power of where we're at geographically, Pennsylvania, could be in helping people get back to a relationship with God and through nature.
So beautiful. I mean, being outdoors in nature helps you connect with the Lord. There's no doubt about it. My own son, my middle child, he goes out every morning, meditates, prays, he steps on the ground. It's just, there's something to that. I mean, I will give the governor some credit, but we need hope for the future, and that hope is in Christ.
We're going to save the rest of this conversation for tomorrow. Thank you all agreeing to be with us for the whole week. What a great and helpful panel this morning. Well, thank you for joining us. Coming up on Morning Light, a faith-based residential recovery and discipleship program offering wholeness to those struggling with addiction. Learn about the Pennsylvania Adult and Teen Challenge up next. And good morning, Southeast PA and the Chester Township building in Delaware County. I know you're watching right here, Morning Light on Lighthouse TV.
According to the National Center for Drug Abuse Statistics, more than 13% of Americans 12 years and older have used drugs in the last month. Nearly 60 million people have used illegal drugs or misused prescription drugs within the last year. And more than 70,000 people die each year as the result of a drug overdose. The Pennsylvania Adult and Teen Challenge program is working to change those statistics. A big part of that, patients are introduced to the gospel of Jesus Christ. Joining me now is Dave Cottrill, Vice President of Programming with Pennsylvania Adult and Teen Challenge. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
So what is Pennsylvania Adult and Teen Challenge?
Yeah, it's hard to discuss what Pennsylvania Adult and Teen Challenge is without first discussing the network it belongs to. So Pennsylvania Adult and Teen Challenge is a Christian organization that belongs to a family of services. It partners with other organizations like Ascend Clinical Services and Naaman. Together, these partnered organizations are designed to provide a full continuum of care for those with substance use disorders. This continuum of care provides a wide range of services, including medically monitored withdrawal management to clinical inpatient, intensive outpatient, and of course, our Legacy and Heritage program, our long-term faith-based discipleship program.
Now, PA Adult and Teen Challenge is founded on the principle that God has the ability to heal individuals struggling with addiction. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, we know God can heal, and God does heal. At Pennsylvania Adult and Teen Challenge, we also recognize that one of the ways God can facilitate the healing and recovery process is through the utilization of professional and clinical services. For that reason, Pennsylvania Adult and Teen Challenge ensures that all of our clients have access to the best evidence-based practices and clinical services necessary to develop the skills needed to sustain a lifestyle of recovery. But we also provide a gospel-centered environment in which they can receive those services. It's our desire that clients receive a hope that surpasses the blessings of recovery, namely the hope of salvation and eternal life through Jesus Christ our Lord.
That's what I was going to say. Tell us more about some of those faith-based programs that you offer to the patients.
Sure. When we talk about programming, there's so much that goes into developing a solid Christian faith-based program like this. We clearly offer structure and daily rhythms and life skills needed for these individuals to be successful once they leave our program. But as a faith-based organization, all of our clients are also required to attend a number of discipleship activities. These activities can include biblical studies, pastoral mentorship, chapel attendance, ministry engagement, and so much more. And along the way, while they do this entire process, again, they also have access to solid evidence-based practices through our partnership organizations. It's there that they can receive, trauma-informed group and individual therapy, mental health counseling for co-occurring disorders, medical management, and even medication-assisted treatment.
And what do you find is really the biggest struggle for patients?
Pennsylvania Adult and Teen Challenge prides itself in serving the underserved population. With that being said, most of the people that we find coming in through our doors are broken and hopeless. For many of them, this is not their first attempt at recovery. But one of the most powerful and rewarding experiences that we have as staff here at Pennsylvania Adult and Teen Challenge is attending a graduation. People who complete our long-term faith-based program are almost unrecognizable from the people that entered into the program in the first place. The people that came in broken and hopeless end up walking across the stage with a smile on their face and confident in not only their ability to maintain recovery, but the Lord's ability to sustain them.
Thank you, Dave, for all that powerful information, certainly making a difference for so many people. And if you or someone you know is struggling with addiction, we encourage you to contact Pennsylvania Adult and Teen Challenge. For more information, go to paatc.org. And coming up on Morning Light, she was lost spiritually and addicted to fentanyl. We will talk with a woman who walked through the PA Adult and Teen Challenge program. We are back in 1 minute. Welcome back. A Pennsylvania woman was filling a void with illicit drugs. She knew she needed to make a change, but didn't know where to start. That is when she discovered the Pennsylvania Adult and Teen Challenge program. Here to share her faith journey with us is Shannon Duckworth. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Talk to us about your journey. How did you get involved with drugs?
Well, I was never involved with any kind of narcotics until I was 22 years old. And at this point in my life, I was a single mom in a very unhealthy and abusive relationship with someone who was addicted to heroin. And Jesus was not a priority for me. I was relying on my own strength to get through the things that I needed to do. And I was lost and I felt alone. And it started with an encounter with a stranger who offered me a Percocet.
And then it continued. You wanted more.
Yes. It continued to the point where I decided one day, let me see if I can stop. I'm spending way too much money. And I became sick. And I sought out heroin from the person that I was in that relationship with. And then I became addicted to heroin.
I was watching a podcast saying that through this addiction, you actually ended up in jail.
Yes. So in addiction, we steal, we con a lot of people, and I had stolen from a family member of mine, and she pressed charges, and the Lord intervened in that way to stop me and to save me from myself and to save me from the certain death that I was facing.
So what was your next step?
My next step was a all women and children's facility, a 6-month program out in Ashland, PA. I went there and You know, the Lord has spoken to me through his verse several times, Psalm 46:10, be still and know that I am God. And he allowed me the opportunity to be still and get to know him and discover the worthiness that I had lost. I had finally felt worthy enough to give myself a chance.
So you were clean for how many years?
I was clean for 8.5 years.
Then what happened?
I had a series of tragedies in my life, and my son and I had lost our home due to COVID. And again, Jesus was on the back burner, and I relied on my own strength again, and I stopped asking for help and relying on him, and I unfortunately relapsed.
I saw a podcast, and you said that your son called PA Adult and Teen Challenge.
Yes. My son had called, and I'll never forget, it was one of the lowest of the lows for me. Alone in my bedroom, I just overdosed and I wanted to die. And my son had called and said, Mom, I have someone on the line from Teen Challenge. Are you willing to speak to them? And I said yes.
Oh my goodness. I mean, how did that make you feel?
I was proud of him, and it made me feel valuable and worthy again of another fight to get my life back on track.
So he made a difference for you.
Yes, he did.
You look wonderful.
Well,
how are
thank
you
you
doing today?
I am blessed beyond measure. The Lord has blessed me with the desires of my heart. I'm newly married to my best friend and the love of my life, and the relationship with my son and my family is just amazing. And if I can, Deborah, if I could ask your viewers just to pray for my mom right now who's battling cancer. I believe in the power of prayer and the Lord's healing.
We will definitely do that. What is the one message that you can give to someone who's watching who is struggling with addiction?
You are worth it. There is no such thing as too far gone. The Lord has raised dry bones and made them breathe life, and just give yourself a chance and reach out for help.
And it certainly made a difference for you. You listened to God's calling.
Yes, I did.
Thank you so much for sharing your journey with us this morning.
Thank you, Deborah.
You're welcome. And if you or someone you know who is struggling with addiction, we encourage you to contact the Pennsylvania Adult and Teen Challenge Program. For more information, go to paatc.org. Stay with us. We are back right after the break. Welcome back. Good morning, Reading, and to all those working at Pennsylvania Adult and Teen Challenge. Thank you for watching Morning Light on Lighthouse TV. And coming up tomorrow on Morning Light, well, we will begin to commemorate the 23rd anniversary of the September 11th attacks. Many of us remember where we were when our country came under attack. Former Pennsylvania Governor Tom Ridge was tapped to become the nation's first Secretary of Homeland Security. His chief of staff will share how he learned that news. Plus, a Pennsylvania man enlisted following the 9/11 attacks. He will share his faith journey with us. And that is a look at what's coming up tomorrow on Morning Light. Now, Jeff, your closing thoughts.
Deborah, I can't believe it's been 23 years since 9/11. Well, addiction comes in many forms, from the scandalous and shameful to things that are, well, pretty culturally acceptable. St. Augustine wrote about his uncontrollable desires and what he called the chains of our own making to describe his battles. And that was 2,000 years before social media, the era we're living in now. Here's one thing we know. We weren't designed to be addicts or fight these battles alone. We were created for community, to be responsible for each other and accountable to God. So if you're watching this and you feel like you're losing the fight and destroying relationships in the process, it's time to call in the big guns. Call that pastor, tell a trusted friend, reach out to organizations like Focus on the Family to get connected to a Christian counselor near you. Above all, find a quiet place, maybe in nature, and tell God the whole story. He's not surprised, and He loves you just the same. So don't give up the fight. For Deborah and the entire Morning Light team, I'm Jeff Coleman. Thank you for watching today. We'll see you again, God willing, tomorrow.